This is Offplanet Radio.
Welcome back to the second part. Can't call it an hour. Second segment, that'll work. Second segment of Offplanet Radio Live. I'm Randy Maugans. The website is offplanetradio.com and offplanetradio.net. And an interesting first segment with Nick Redfern. He's always fun. He's just a fountainhead of all kinds of research knowledge. And my guest this hour is a suitable complement to that. He's somebody I've wanted to have on the air for about a year now. Actually goes back to last year about this time. I was on vacation in Sedona, Arizona. And I walked into a store and heard some music. And so I started to inquire as to what this music was, this tone, this sound. And the person in the store told me that it was Peter Sterling. And so I went online, I looked up Peter, I found the CD. It's called Circles of Light. And it is wind harp and crystal bowl sounds from inside of a crop circle. And I proceeded to buy the CD, and I proceeded to listen to the CD, and, well, let me get Peter up here, and let's talk about this. Hey, Peter, welcome.
Hey, Randy, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you may have to lean in a little bit on that microphone.
Okay. Randy, thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here, and I'm just so intrigued and excited to hear your story of Circles of Light, of the sound of the wind harp.
Yeah, as I was saying, this CD somehow just needed to appear in my consciousness. I was doing research on crop circles around the same time. I was in Sedona for a very brief, all too brief visit. And in that period of time, I went back to where I was staying, and I pulled up the website, and I found the CD. And the person who had told me about this CD could only tell me that it had something to do with crop circles. And I'm thinking, now there's a synchronicity. Right. So I get the CD, and this thing lived in my MP3 player. I ripped it to an MP3s to put it on my player, and I have to say that this was a time when I was very deeply into meditation. I was kind of coming back into a spiritual zone myself. Mm-hmm. And this became the soundtrack for some very exquisite meditation experiences that I had over about a 6-month period. Mm-hmm. And so I guess the time was that we were supposed to connect now rather than then. And in the meantime, I don't know where the Circles of Light sits in your catalog chronologically. Not that there's time, but we have to humor that illusion. Mm-hmm. But for me, it kind of dropped into my consciousness at a very interesting period of time. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about that album and about the energy behind it, because what I picked up from it was you were pretty much inside of a crop circle and pulling very interesting energy through music.
Yes. Well, yeah, I made the recording a couple of years ago. It was not my first trip to the crop circles. It was my second trip. Mm-hmm. And I started going to the crop circles a few years ago after I had a very kind of intense UFO experience. And I was guided to go. It was finally my time to go. But as maybe some of your listeners know, or some don't, I'm a harpist by profession for 20 years now, and I've taken my harp all over the world to sacred sites. And but while in England, I had a small travel harp that I can take on the plane with me fairly easily, and was with a group of people in the middle of a beautiful new crop circle that appeared while we were there, and we were doing a light body DNA activation meditation and sound activation. And what I do is I hold the small harp up above my head into the wind, and the wind blows through the strings and makes them vibrate, and they begin to make a beautiful, beautiful sound, which is like nothing you've ever heard. It's
No.
a celestial sound par excellence, and very, very angelic and extremely high frequency. And it's like all the strings are vibrating at once, and they make this rainbow of sound, and then it's full of color and light and extremely ultra high frequency. So I've had quite remarkable experiences with many people who have reported listening to the sound. And also, while I'm there in the crop circles and sacred sites, I actually do it, live for groups, and actually can play the wind harp above people's bodies and just kind of bathe them in the high frequency tones. I actually lay the harp directly on the body and let the wind play it. And the sound is very, very rich in harmonics. It has many layers.
Yes.
It's really a holographic sound because the harmonics are so rich and so perfectly structured that the sound opens up into higher dimensions. So through this sound actually opens portals into these higher dimensional realms through the frequencies. And you can access these realms by allowing the sound to transport you there. And perhaps that's part of what happened to you. Certainly it's happened to me and many other people I know.
Yeah, and it seems like very much I felt at times listening to this like I was there, like I was transported. And I've not been in a crop circle. It's something I want to do at some point in this life. But the sense that I had transported me a lot of times. And a lot of times when I'm meditating or I'm just in this kind of, I don't know, theta state, is that visions will open up and you begin to see things. And what I saw a lot of times were just brilliant light shooting up out of the ground. This energy that's being imparted through this music. And it's, talking about it really doesn't do it justice. And as we close out the show tonight, I will play some of your music.
Okay. Good.
But we usually play music between guests, and what happened tonight was we ran pretty far off schedule, and I wanted to get you on real quickly, so I didn't get a chance to, intro some music.
Sure.
But I think to describe it best, it would be the music itself, and kind of transports you into that place in a way that's very difficult to describe. It's a mystical experience in itself. And for me, that was the first that I was introduced to Peter Sterling. And I'm looking right now at this book that you've just released. It's called Hearing the Angels Sing, A True Story of Angelic Assistance. And reading through it, it seems like you were basically prepared a long time ago through your life, through your experiences, the things that happened, the people who you intersected with, that you had, I will call it a mission, to use this music at this particular point in time. We're in a time of, I call it ascension, the shift. Consciousness is changing, the planet's changing, and I believe that your music is a part of that. Your early history, your childhood, all seems like a preparation for where you're at now. So talk a little bit about that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've had a sense of mission and purpose since I was quite young, as I describe in the book. And I had a grandmother who was very close to me, and she was my first spiritual teacher. And she was a soul traveler and a real mystic. And so she started, and she was a kind of a primary caregiver to me when I was young, as a young boy. And she was always whispering things into my ear as I was growing up. And then as I went as a teenager and an adult, our conversations got more direct. But specifically when I was about 14 or 15 and started kind of coming into my manhood, that's when my grandmother really started teaching me directly, and I was inquisitive about it. And she started revealing to me that she was able to leave her body at will and do like astral projection. And in her meditation, she's a adept at Ekankar, which is the ancient science of soul travel. And so she, through the techniques, was able to kind of travel out of the top of her head and golden pillar of light into these higher dimensions and link up with angels and ascended masters and other people that were doing that, and learning in these golden temples on these higher dimensions. So I was just so fascinated by this, and so that really kind of set me off on the path to develop myself spiritually, and just I was so curious and inquisitive that I wanted to have those experiences myself. So from a young age, I started experimenting and exploring and stretching myself to see beyond the confines of normal third dimensional reality, because through what my grandmother was teaching me and through the Eastern teachings and whatnot, that this world that we're experiencing is kind of an illusion, that it's illusory. And so I started to try to see beyond the illusion of this world, and that's when I started piercing the veils into these other dimensions. So I've been on the path for a long time, and but it seemed that there was some sort of guiding spiritual presence with me as long as I can remember, and it ultimately led me to discover my mission with the harp, which came to me about 20 years ago when I was guided to come to Sedona, where actually I'm talking to you now from, Randy.
Great. Send my blessings there. I love Sedona. I've been there twice, and every time I go, I come away just completely amazed by the energy.
It's incredible. We have friends staying with us right now. It's their first time here. They've been here for a few days, and they're absolutely blown away. And actually last night, they were up in the middle of the night. Apparently we have a little separate guest casita, and they were out under the stars, and they saw UFOs last night, kind of undeniable, like diamond-shaped light craft up in the night sky that were moving about back and forth above Sedona last night. So it's an incredible place, and I was guided here 20 years ago, specifically really to go on my inner quest, and I ended up, as I was saying, I had a sense of purpose and mission, and had expressed that in various ways, but I knew I was getting a mission upgrade, and my spiritual guidance was that I was going on a vision quest, and this was like a very serious initiation I was going to undertake. And in order to do so, I was to release, my attachment to normal reality in many ways. And also, I end up letting go of the majority of my possessions. I moved into a Volkswagen camper van, and I slept out in the canyons every night. And I didn't know how long this would last. It ended up 3 years. I was living out in the canyon, sleeping in my car. But this allowed me to really immerse myself into this timeless place, and it really into the dream time where I let go of normal reality, and I crossed over for a while, and it was the doorway for me was really being out in the wilderness and experience this profound silence in my meditations.
Yeah.
You know how it is out there in the backcountry here in the canyons, and it's just such a strong presence and energy there, but just really an amazing silence. And I was able to really come into resonance with that energy, and my mind really began to kind of slow down, and I went into kind of a void, like into a great emptiness. The Buddhists, the Tibetans speak about emptiness, and I was kind of studying the Buddhist way as well during the time. So I just went into the emptiness, into the silence, and it was there where my inner hearing opened up, and I began to see the inner light and also hear the inner music where the angels began to sing. I could hear the angelic choirs, and it was by hearing that which led me to just travel with the music. I was guided to allow the music to carry me, and I traveled with it up into these higher dimensions out of my body, and had a very direct connection with, kind of the source light, and also the angelic, different angelic beings who came to me. And it was quite a life-changing experience, Randy.
You experienced this silence. It's something that I've experienced as well. I call it the still. People think of silence as the absence of sound, but what I've discovered is that in this place, the silence, the still, there is an abundance of frequencies that connect in a way that bypasses the normal auditory system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I call it the roaring silence.
Yeah.
Because when you get into it, then you discover that, oh my God, there's all this sound happening. And I heard it described recently. I think I was reading a Jonathan Goldman book in sound, describing how the brain and our auditory nerves and our auditory sensory apparatus of our ears and how it's connected to our brain is designed, or it's calibrated so that we only hear within a certain frequency bandwidth, you know. And if we were to hear all the sounds that were happening on all different frequency and harmonic levels, that we would be overwhelmed with it. So, you know, we have filters put on. But what my experience was when I went into this deep kind of meditative, transcendent state, the filters were able to kind of I was able to take off the filters, and it was almost like I experienced that my ears, like almost a cone of energy kind of extended out of my ears, very similar to like when you look at sea anemones underwater and how they reach out their tentacles, you know, when you touch them, they come back and pull themselves back in. Well, sitting in that space out in the wilderness, my energy field, my chakras and my energy body began to expand, and my hearing, I experienced like these little antenna almost, or a cone-shaped kind of thing began to unfurl kind of out of my ear, like on an etheric level, which allowed me to perceive up into these higher harmonic frequencies, which revealed the great celestial music and the angelic choirs that I was shown how this music is happening constantly. It's never ending, and it's an eternal sound, a source of sound which is like broadcasted throughout the universes and coming from the great source of it all, the great central sun, or from paradise, from the very central isle of paradise. And
it was called music of the spheres in other times. Yeah.
Well, some people call it that too. I mean, the spheres, sometimes it's like the music of the planets. Maybe the planets have frequencies and sounds, and of course they do. And some people have described it as the music of the spheres, kind of like the wind harp, you know. That's the music of the spheres kind of a sound, and within it are all these other sounds. But the angels this was like, when I heard it at first, it sounded like great kind of classical music, like majestic symphonic music, and I thought maybe somebody was out in the forest with me playing a stereo of classical music, but I just know that I was tuning into this sound, this sound current, and it really got to the point where it seemed like everything was emanating, like the sound was coming out of everything, actually. And it was very much like, I don't know if you ever saw the movie August Rush.
Yes, it's one of my favorite movies, actually. Yeah.
He was out in nature, and then he heard the great music. And that's what it was like. It was just like that. The music was coming from the rustling of the leaves in the trees, the sound of the little stream and the bird song, and everything. I heard it and realized what it was. I saw that how everything was in harmony with this great sound current. And the angels actually told me later that there was a time on the planet where all the beings on this earth during, in the past golden ages, where everybody heard the great music and the great celestial symphonies, and it kept everything in harmony and balance. But because of our passage through time and our fall, so to speak, into the lower dimensions, we lost touch with the source of the great sound current, But now, what's occurring, according to the angels, is that once again it's becoming loud, turned up, and many of us now are hearing the inner music, the soul symphonies, and it's unifying us all into oneness. It's calling us together to become one. And we're coming into resonance and harmony with this great sound current, which how the angels have described, and I experienced it firsthand, that it's actually calling us home into the light, into the oneness. And this is the energy that we are to connect into in order to make Ascension, as you were speaking earlier.
Yeah.
We connect in with the inner sound, the cosmic sound current, and it's a very direct path into the light and into oneness.
In your book, you talk a little bit about your early experiences, and one of the things that you were involved with was working with stained glass. And I wonder how that kind of develops into your music as well. I remember as a kid thinking there's more colors than we can see, there's more frequencies than we can hear. It was just one of those thoughts I always had. It was unprovable, I think, but I think later on I understood it better. Do you have a sense that working with an art like stained glass somehow also helped to elevate your sensibilities as you came into music? The color tones. You talked about the harmonics of the harp, and it's one of the things that I noticed in the Circles of Light CD, and also in the CD that comes with the book Hearing the Angels Sing, is all these overtones that seem to just jump out of a harp. So we have this like symphony of light and symphony of color and symphony of sound. When you close your eyes, you kind of have a sensory experience. How was that informed by your work in the craft of stained glass?
Good question. I always say that, for those who don't know my history, I had an epiphany at about 6 years old when I was taken into the Episcopal Church by my mother for the first time, and we didn't go to the normal Sunday school, and it was around Easter time, and I sat the high Episcopal Mass where the priest has holy water and they're burning incense.
I think our Skype connection's cutting out on us, Peter. We're losing the connection. Hold on, I'm going to put some music on, some of your music, and we will reconnect with Peter Sterling in just a minute. That is some of the music from Peter Sterling's CD, which is part of the book, Hearing the Angels Sing. And that book, we'll talk about where you can get that during the course of this show. It gives you a little taste of the kind of music that Peter does. And let me bring Peter back up here. Hey, Peter. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Sorry, our Skype kind of dropped out on us there. But we were kind of talking about the interplay of color, vibrations, music, sound, and how you had worked with stained glass.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about my experience as a young boy in the church, and when the light started coming through the stained glass windows, and this beautiful light fell in front of me, and in my childlike mind, I was kind of in a trance by what was happening. But I looked at the beautiful beams of colored light coming through the window, and I really remember that I kind of traveled up those beams of light, and I was touched. I think I was really kind of touched by the Holy Spirit at that point, and I had this kind of whole illumination, transcendent experience as a young kid in that moment, and I told my mother that sitting in the church, I looked up at her and I said, when I grow up, I want to be a stained glass window maker. And she just kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, that's nice. And we didn't think about it much. But later on, as a teenager, I rediscovered it. And I went right into making kind of mandala geometric patterns instead of more realistic designs. And I just seemed to have a natural knack of intuitively creating these beautiful designs. And so I've been doing it now most of my life. And what I discovered, I've always told people that it seemed though my work in stained glass and creating mandalas out of stained glass, for those who don't know what a mandala is, it's kind of typical of Asian style, like Tibetan style art that has more of a geometric patterns, and you can use them to meditate. And they kind of affect your awareness, your consciousness if you meditate with these shapes and patterns. And so that's what I was drawn to. I actually started inlaying crystals and gemstones into the templates of the windows to enhance and magnify the energies that were already inherent in the sacred geometries. For those who don't know, sacred geometries are just like the patterns that we find reflected in nature and the cosmos. And a lot of the ancients understood the harmonic patternings of nature, resonance with source intelligence. So the idea was to, create buildings, structures, churches, and mosques, everything, and sacred areas out of these same patterns in order to bring through these cosmic energies. And so my experience was by working the geometries that it opened kind of portals in my own consciousness, and then I went through, and I heard the music. And so I really do believe that the sacred geometries and the patterns in mandala type and yantra type designs, and also like the crop circles, because the crop circles have the sacred geometries in them too, and just by looking at them, they can really have a profound effect on our awareness and really trigger kind of spiritual evolution rapidly. And so I do, and all the ancient mystery schools throughout many, many traditions always taught the interconnection of light and sound and color and harmonics and mathematics, and how it all was this beautiful kind of flowering, fractal-like flowering of these divine proportions and harmonic patterns that are reflected throughout the creation. And when you start to see that, start to interact with these source code harmonic templates, that they really do become like portals where you can access higher frequencies within your own consciousness, within your own heart, soul, and then you can come into resonance with them, and they really do spur a spiritual evolution. They alter your perceptions, and you come into kind of holographic understanding in the unified field of oneness.
I'm curious to know, having been in the crop circles, what do you think, based on your experience there as the source of the crop circles, do you believe that they are connected to our own consciousness?
Well, I think they do. I mean, I think at the source of everything is connected. Everything is oneness. So everything, our perceptions are kind of reflective. So I think they are for our consciousness. I think they are here to affect our consciousness and to spur our collective humanity's spiritual evolution. I think that the circle makers, the source of them, which my experience has definitely been, for the most part, besides the ones that are man-made by people going out there and making them. There's an off-planet, extraterrestrial, galactic intelligence, I believe, and have had contact with that are bringing these through for us to, it's a communication that's occurring, and one that's medium is through these geometric patterns, and they are holographic, and they have information encoded with them. So as you look at the crop circles and even just look at pictures on the internet and you meditate on them, then you can start to receive the imprints, the harmonic codes, and the frequencies of them, and they carry information. And I think they really, through our perceptions, through looking at them through the visual cortex, the brain, then we can receive these harmonic frequencies through these sacred geometrical patterns, and they are triggering evolution of our DNA and awakening dormant areas of the brain for those who want to receive them, and they really are here to spur on the evolution of mankind.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I noticed with the circles of light you talked about DNA activation. It's kind of a new subject to me in a way. I've been in groups and discussed this subject, but there seems to be this interest now connected to frequencies that are beginning to elevate or activate our DNA as part of this whole ascension process.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, when you understand where we're at right now collectively as humanity, what geneticists say, who have studied the DNA and they've mapped the genome and what they figured out about it, they've only decoded about 20% of it, and that's what they believe that we're actually using. They say that about 80% of our DNA is dormant, or they've termed it junk DNA, but there's no need, like tonsils, just cut it out and throw it away.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that the dormant DNA has just been waiting. That's what it is. It's dormant. And now, because of an influx of higher frequency energies coming into our planetary sphere, that the dormant DNA is awakening. And a lot of it is being triggered by the sun and the radiant kind of luminous light coming from our star, because our star is going through its own evolution right now. This is what the Mayans said about 2012, which is the birth of the sixth sun. Yeah. So the sun is in a sunspot cycle right now, and we're being bombarded by supercharged particles, photons, protons coming from the sun, and our magnetic field is weak around the planet. So there's a greater influx of these. Actually, there's science now to back this up. There's new science in the last year that has come out of Stanford and Purdue, a kind of a joint research, and they've discovered that the carbon molecule, because we're a carbon-based life form, and the carbon molecule is within us, within our DNA, is mutating. And the way that they discovered this, Rand, is quite interesting because, we have carbon dating. So, when they find an ancient artifact, they'll carbon date it, and they look at the decay rate of carbon, because carbon, has a half-life of a certain number of years. But now that is changing. It's no longer, and that has been a constant for decades. But now it's speeding up, and there's something that's triggering the speeding up of the carbon, of the decay of the carbon molecule. And so now, apparently, carbon dating is no longer accurate, really. And they're also seeing the carbon atoms within us is mutating, and they believe it's because of some sort of a light particle coming from the sun. They don't really know what it is. So it's very intriguing. And this is what the ancients knew. That's why my understanding is the ancients, Egyptians, Incans, Mayans, Aztecs, the Druids, the ancient Sumerians, they all worshiped the sun. Very, advanced cultures, and because they knew the source of everything was coming from the sun. Even right now, like when I'm here in Sedona, it's nighttime. There's photons and protons streaming forth from the sun and passing right through the planet, right through our bodies right now at the speed of light. These subatomic light particles coming from the sun, and because the sun is in the morphic field, the collective energy of the galaxy, and what the Mayans termed Hunab-Ku, which is the black hole at the center of our galaxy, there is a communication that takes place within the stars and the galaxies, and it's evolutionary in nature. And we're bathing in this information stream on these light particles, and it's actually triggering our dormant DNA and also the dormant areas of our brain, which, neurologists say that the average human is using 2 to 3% of their brain capacity, and geniuses like Einstein were using perhaps 10%. So there's, 90% of our brain capacity we're not using, which corresponds to the dormant DNA. 80% of the DNA is dormant. And an interesting correlation, Randy, is that even scientists now, astrophysicists and quantum physicists, say that what we're seeing with like advanced instruments and telescopes that are looking into deep space, like the Hubble, we're only seeing about only 10%, 10 to 20% of what's actually there, because according to the scientists, that 80% is dark matter, or it exists in another dimension and we can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there is a correlation between our perceptions and what we're able to perceive in the physical universe with our operating at a diminished capacity with our brains and our neuronet and our neurology, and also our DNA is not fully functioning or active. So right now, all of these systems are coming online, and there's a cosmic trigger that's triggering them off. And, at this close of this great age and cycle of time, also this is like, the end of time. It's the apocalypse, which literally means lifting of the veil.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people put very dark connotations on that, usually based on misinterpreting old scriptures. But in fact, I believe when you go back and you look at the ancient masters, even the words of Jesus, he was talking about the end of an age and the beginning of another age, a new age.
Well, and even, Jesus said, be in the world but not of it. And he said that our true home is in heaven, or in the higher dimensions. And just like in the Vedas, the ancient texts over 5,000 years old, they say that this world is nothing but an illusion. It's a perceptual illusion. It's kind of like a collective mass dream, and it's actually not real. And that this is all illusory. So, there's a greater reality. So I think part of this time with the 2012 and the galactic alignments and these great cosmic synchronizations that are occurring on many levels in the quantum reality, that humanity is, and all the prophecies say that we're being offered to make an evolutionary quantum leap in consciousness right now. And for those who want to grow spiritually and want to evolve spiritually, there's an opportunity to go to the next level. And for some, to in the third dimension, and my understanding is there'll be like a split in the timeline, and then those of us who want to go.
Yeah, this is something that I've heard a lot about, even the idea that two Earths, the parallel worlds, the third and fourth dimension, and the ascension to fifth. Peter dropped off again. We're suffering the ravages of the noble Skype machine tonight. Let's throw a little music up here. This is some music from Harp Circle, and we'll get Peter back. I'll try not to overdrive the audio this time. I know that's been a problem. This is the sound of Crop Circle harp music. And we are back with Peter Sterling. And unfortunately, the Skype monster is biting us on the butt tonight. So just kind of bear with us. It gives you a chance to hear.
Some of the wind harp.
Yeah, absolutely. That's crop circle music from Peter Sterling, and Peter is back on the line. And where were we? What were we talking about now?
Well, I was just thinking, can we mention the website where?
Absolutely, let's do that. Let's do that, Peter.
Yeah, my website is harpmagic.com, harpmagic.com, and Circles of Light is there as well as all my other music. But go ahead, Randy.
Oh, no. Let's talk a little bit about the book itself while we're in this conversation mode. What was the force behind writing the book? What decided to... this is your first book, right?
The first book, and, for many years people asked me when I would share my stories of how the angels came to me and revealed to me that I was to play the harp, to bring through a special music for the time of Ascension, especially 2012. They spoke directly about 2012 and the Ascension into the unified field of oneness, of love, and that the music was one of the vehicles to do it. But wherever I would go and share my story and perform my music, people would always say that would be a great book. They would always ask me for my book, and then finally I decided to, almost after 18 years of finally decided to write it. So the angels helped me a lot, and the way it really comes through, Randy, and I've had many people report it, is that the story really brings you into this whole kind of alternate reality of the angels and how they work and how they navigate through the different dimensions and the angelic realms. And I included a CD of 70 minutes of music I put together, which was a collection of songs from my 12 CDs, specifically for the book. And you listen to the music as you're reading the book, it really opens up like a hologram. My after all this time interdimensional travel with the angels and other higher dimensional light beings, I really come to understand that one of the next stages of evolution for humanity and those who are making the shift into Ascension consciousness is starting to see things within the unified field of oneness. And when you do, reality opens up into a hologram. And, what's fascinating, Randy, is even now quantum physicists are starting to agree. Many of them I forgot the name of this kind of theory, but it really is, many of them believe that we're living inside of a hologram. And when you can start to see that, there's a big shift in your perceptions. This is how the book and the music has always worked. It has within it, these frequencies which affect your perceptions, and you can really see into a higher dimensional reality. And you kind of go through a wormhole, and you can see. And especially if you close your eyes with the music and allow the music to take you on these incredible journeys, and you really the inner vision opens up, and you can see the angels. Many people report having first-hand encounters with angels from listening to my music and also reading the book, because it has these things, have this resonant frequency in it, which can bring you into harmony with these particular energies. And I think at this time it's really important.
As I said earlier at the beginning of the interview, Peter, your life seemed to prepare you for this path. You had some very interesting encounters with people, and one of them was actually John Denver. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. Well, that was in my 20s. This is before I was playing the harp, and I was living in Aspen, and I met John and ended up working in his Wiltshire Foundation, where he had a beautiful research and educational facility in the mountains of Colorado near Aspen. And it was really quite a wonderful time being with him. He was such an amazing being and had such a beautiful message, and how he sang about the beauty of nature and the power of nature and the majesty of nature and love and all of this. And he was a remarkable being. I feel really honored. And meet him and have time with him.
I have the sense that, John was kind of a forerunner of this. A lot of people don't know this unless they, have looked at the work that the Windstar Foundation has done. But he was sort of a leading edge voice for what eventually became, I hate the term New Age, but, you have to use what you got. But he was sort of a voice for this period that we're in now. Yeah,
he really was. And, right before he passed on, he was getting ready to make a big comeback because it had really been about 20 years since he had like a #1 record. And his time was coming again because of the environmental movement that was growing so rapidly with global warming and new environmental awareness, and he was really going to be a voice for that. But unfortunately, the Great Spirit brought him home before he was able to bring that forth.
It's interesting because as I was reading through your book, and unfortunately I scan a lot of times, but I noticed that you had mentioned another influence of yours was Jacques Cousteau. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, John Denver with that beautiful song Calypso that he wrote for Cousteau. Mm-hmm. So there's like all these threads that weave through it.
Yeah, there definitely is. And the interesting thing about John, one of the connections with him was what was revealed to me as the legend of the golden dolphin, which I speak about in the book too. And I had this whole kind of dolphin energy, that thread that wove through my awakening and transformation as well. But John was one of the voices for the dolphins, and he sang about them and wrote songs about them and was very much inspired by them, as Jacques Cousteau was and others. But for a long time I thought I was going to be an oceanographer, but that didn't happen.
Universe had another mission for you, Peter. I want to ask you a little bit about how you came to pick up the harp, how you learned to play the harp. The harp is not an easy instrument to play. I mean, I play guitar. I spent a lot of years learning to be mediocre on a guitar. Picking up a harp and making it do what you do, how does that work exactly?
Well, I think there's really kind of a misconception about the harp. And a lot of people say it's such a difficult instrument to play. And my experience was that it was very easy to play. I think actually it's probably one of the easier instruments to play. And I love letting people play my harps who've never played one before. And it's always wonderful to...
Oh, no. Okay, we just had a computer meltdown on the main computer here, so bear with me. Technical gremlins are abundant tonight. We'll pull a little bit of music up here while the computer reboots. And my apologies for technical difficulties because the equipment wasn't calibrated. And while I was away, unfortunately, inattentiveness caused me to not pay attention to the technical side of this show tonight. So, we'll bring Peter back in here in a minute. I think you'll be able to hear this music a little better. It's not so overdriven now. And bear in mind, too, that this music was recorded being inside of a crop circle. He's actually literally holding up the harp inside of the wind, inside of the crop circle. The vibration energy from inside the crop circle is actually generating these tones. And these tones, if you hold a tuning fork up to them, will actually resonate at different frequency levels that are within the human range to tune DNA. I actually have a pitchfork or a tuning fork here that I've done this with. It's a DNA tuning fork. And the other sound you're hearing as well in the background is a crystal bowl, which is being played by another musician who appears on the CD. So again, we're working to get Peter back online here. And this is some music from the book, Hearing the Angels Sing. Still working to get things back online here. are back with my guest, Peter Sterling. The unfortunate collapse of the phone bridge caused me to have to reboot a computer. So, Peter, you're back with us. Welcome back again.
Thank you.
And the listeners were treated to some of the crop circle music and some of the music from hearing the angels sing. So they've gotten a little bit of a taste of your music, and I think the muse that comes behind it, the sense that, again, we were talking about, the harp, and I consider it difficult when I look at it. It's intimidating, all those strings. But your approach to it feels very organic. It feels like your music comes from inside. You're not formally trained as a musician, is that correct?
That's correct. The angels taught me how to play. When I first got my first harp, the person I got it from was an accomplished harpist, and she kind of taught me how to hold it, how to put my hands on the strings properly. But then I just went out into the forest, into the back country here, and would carry the little harp with me and find a magical place to take it out and just put my hands through the strings and just see what would happen. And I would start just by strumming, just the classic kind of glissando sound of the strumming of the harp, and even that sound is so easy to do and just sounds so heavenly, and it's very soothing, relaxing. And within it, you can hear all sorts of. That's how it started, just by strumming all the strings one after the other. Then I started to hear the music, and I started to pluck little melodies, and it actually was quite simple. It came quite naturally for me, so if anybody's out there feels attracted to the harp, it's not as difficult, and it brings great joy to play.
You did the Crop Circle album, and there's some pictures in the book with another musician playing the crystal bowl named Crystal Bliss. Tell us a little bit about Crystal.
Well, Crystal Bliss is my beautiful, beloved life partner, and we live together here in Sedona, and we have a beautiful 17-month-old boy that was conceived shortly after our trip to the crop circles, or maybe on that trip. And he's a little star child, and so Crystal Bliss plays the crystal bowl on that recording, along with the wind harp. It's a wonderful alchemy.
It's funny you mentioned that. I have a sense that, many of us that are kind of in this particular realm have this sense of, the kind of indigo child type thing that's been going on. This sense that we maybe were sent here. Some of us have the sense that our destinies were in other worlds, other planets.
Right.
Do you have that sense as well, that sort of otherworldly type presence?
Well, I've always felt that I was kind of only visiting this planet. I always felt more of a connection, I think I had more of a lineage with the kind of the star nations, and I always felt a kind of visitor and almost one who was traveling through a foreign land here. It never really felt like home to me in this world.
Yeah.
And I know that's a very common feeling for many people, especially people that are kind of star-seed cosmic beings. We're like, when we wake up and you realize where you are, and we see so much of the unfortunate circumstances of human life here on planet Earth, and how the humans treat each other, it just seems like it's heartbreaking for us who come from a place and have kind of an innate soul awareness of beings living in harmony and oneness together, and we just see here so much separation and all the problems that separation brings for us. But the good news is that humanity is moving through another portal at this time and unifying, and perhaps we can unify and collectively go through this portal and come into the golden age.
Last few minutes here, and I'm sorry because your interview kind of got chopped up by unfortunate telephone difficulties and little technical glitches tonight, but let people know again about your website, the book, where they can find the book, and what they can expect from this book.
Well, my website is harpmagic.com, harpmagic.com. The book and all my music is there. You can hear all samples of the music and check out the book as well. The book's also on Amazon. And there's a Kindle version, and I think it's also on iTunes. You can get an ebook version of it there as well. And really, the book and the music is really a cosmic trigger. You know, many people, Randy, after I do shows like yours, and I get emails from people, and people want to know. You know, people are really hungry. They want to move into the new energy. They want to make an ascension. They want to raise their vibration, and they ask me, you know, how to do that. And the angels who gave me this music and taught me how to play the harp, they really said that one of the easiest ways to come into resonance with higher frequencies is through the power of music and sound. And you can use my CDs. They all have within them coatings of the angelic frequencies and inspiration from the angels. And if you come into resonance with my music, open your heart and listen with your heart, your soul will start to vibrate, and it'll become illuminated for you. And it'll raise your vibration and bring you into that unified field of love, and your perceptions will change, and your life will change. I've had many, many people report this to me, Randy, and you can read the letters on my website and the letters and comments. And many people begin to see angels. Their third eye begins to open, their heart opens, and they just start to see into this divine reality. And it's quite simple. It doesn't have to be so hard. It doesn't take a master's degree in order to make your ascension. You don't have to be like spiritually enlightened all the way in order to make it through. But the most important thing is just to come into resonance with the power of oneness and divine love. And that comes through the music, and it's very palpable. And it really the music can cocoon you as you listen to it. And it can be very comforting and very healing on many levels. And I've had many people report like on medication for depression and bipolar and really out of balance, and they start listening to my music, and it brings them to a whole level of awareness, and they don't need the medication anymore. So it really does work. So I highly encourage people to come on over and have a listen over at harpmagic.com.
Absolutely. And don't forget about picking up the book, Hearing the Angels Sing. You can find that information on Peter's website as well. Peter, it's been far too short a conversation. Unfortunately, it got chopped up a lot. I want to have you back again at some point in time to talk more and touch base. The experience of the angels is real. And just in closing, I need to ask, your perception, what messages the angels are giving you as we kind of veer right now towards the end of this year, 2012?
Yeah. The main thing is to have no fear as best you can, to stay connected to the source of love in your life, and to not have any fear as best you can, because the fear, if you're having a lot of fear, that will lower your vibration and keeps you into kind of duality. So no matter what happens, just keep your eye on the prize of the light, try to release fear. And the angels want also people to know that it's not difficult now to connect with your own angels that are around you, that are here to be of service to everybody, to help us through these times of uncertainty. And if you can connect with your angels, they can give you divine guidance and help you make difficult life choices and help us navigate these uncertain times. It's not that difficult. All you need to do is very simply call out with the language of your own heart and soul and ask them to come to you and reveal themselves to you, and develop a connection and a communication with them. And they can move your life into a whole new plane of awareness and really bring a lot of miracles and healing on many, many levels. And it's not that difficult. They're here longing to reunite with you. So just reach out, ask them to come to you, call on them with the music, with the language, that energy from your heart, and they will appear to you, and it'll be a great comfort and really a guiding light through these times of rapid change right now that we're all going through.
Great way to sum it up, my friend. It's been wonderful talking to you, sharing the experience and hearing some of this music, and you can find that, Peter Sterling's music, at harpmagic.com. I'm Randy Maugans. This is Offplanet Radio. We'll be back again next week with another show. You can check the website at offplanetradio.com for what's coming up there. We're going to take you out with a little bit more Peter Sterling's music. Peter, stay on the line for a minute. I'll talk to you after I close out. So we'll see you again next week. Thanks to Dave. Thanks for the folks at wolfspiritradio.com. And thanks to you, the listener.
Thank you.